My name is Danelle Smith McManus, and I'm a mother to an almost 13-year-old girl, Gracie, and a 15-year-old boy, Nathan, a wife to my husband, Pat, a stepmother to 3 grown children, Grandma Dee to 6 grandchildren, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a puppy mom, a friend, a business owner and entrepreneur, a lover and promoter of the arts, who had the unfortunate luck to receive very bad news one day. I was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma that had spread into my lymph nodes and had metastasized into a small spot on my right iliac bone. That was 6.5 years ago. First order of treatment was 6 rounds of chemotherapy. And unfortunately, I got pneumonia around the 5th, so round 6 was canceled because I was too weak. This led to the first visit with my oncology surgeon on September 26, 2013, to discuss my double mastectomy. At this point, it hadn't been identified that the biopsy of my iliac spot showed that the cancer had actually progressed to be HER2 positive, even though the pathology of the breast wasn't. The fact that this could even happen with Mets cancer had just been discovered through research at PMH in 2011. Back to my appointment with the surgeon. His nurse was warm and lovely and welcoming to Pat and I, and him, on the other hand, well, he'd clearly read my chart. And he told me that doing a mastectomy was only palliative and that the cancer would grow back and it could get ugly and deformed. I sat in stunned disbelief. I had high hopes for reconstructive surgery, and no one had used the word palliative to me before. He was clearly confused by my disease and actually asked me, "Why would you want reconstructive surgery?" My response was, "Because I'm only 42. Truth be told, I had turned 43 the day before, but I totally forgot in the moment. He hummed and he hawed at me and got me in to see a plastic surgeon right that day and told me to come back to see him the following week and tell him what the plastic surgeon had said. At this point, you have to remember that all of this is new information. And as a patient, no matter how much you've read and researched and Dr. Googled, there's no way you can understand the levels that go into making these kinds of choices from a surgeon's perspective. The plastic surgeon was a lot more uplifting for me, which was nice, and assured me that he'd done lots of successful reconstructs on people with Mets disease. The appointment with the oncology surgeon, because of the negative language that he used, sent me on a downward emotional spin, the kind where it's difficult to breathe. And as I do, I analyzed every moment in the appointment over and over again, trying to find the hidden meanings and to figure out what he really meant. My sister said she would come to the appointment with me the following week. And on the drive there, she asked me, "Why does he want to see you again?" I said, as my stomach was turning, I don't know, he just did." And in we go. And I told him the plastic surgeon seemed good to go. So he proceeded to examine me. He started to explain that normally they don't do it this way. Usually they do the mastectomy and then the patient gets radiation and then there's reconstructive surgery. He said, "But since you can't have radiation, I guess it makes sense to do it this way." I froze. My mind was reeling. I almost said nothing, but then I blurted out, "Why can't I have radiation?" And I was trying to connect anything in my past that had happened, that it would make sense that I couldn't have radiation. And there was nothing. His answer to me was, "I don't know, that's what it says on your chart." I'm gonna stop here for a minute, because now I had a choice. Choice A, say nothing and accept what he said, because clearly he was the doctor, and it must be true because it was written on my chart. Or choice B, which I chose, I looked at him, and with all the courage I could muster, I said, "I don't know why he would say that. I can't think of any reason that I can't have radiation." Choosing choice A would have taken me out of the narrative today. I chose choice B because my survival instincts kicked in, and that's why I'm able to talk about this 6.5 years later. At this point, he told me he would be back, and he walked out the door. And he found my medical oncologist, and they had a discussion, and then together they consulted with a radiation oncologist, and they came into the room about 30 minutes later together and said that there must have been some mistake. There seemed to be no reason why I couldn't have radiation. And the next week, I started 10 rounds of radiation therapy on my iliac spot. And that spot has been stable since this treatment in October of 2013. The man who had caused me such grief and fear initially had prolonged my life immeasurably. I often reflect on the difficulty I had to be courageous enough to question why I couldn't have radiation. And it makes me frightened for people who wouldn't be able to come up with the words to question the doctor's statement. These are the situations that we must empower each other to advocate for ourselves. My story would have a very different ending if I hadn't spoken up.